Hello, hello, and welcome to the I Come First podcast. I'm your host, Amie Barsky. And before we dive into today's conversation, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. If you are here, it tells me that you are courageous and curious and perhaps craving change in your life. It also tells me that you are ready to fuel your life with a deeper understanding of yourself. So, from my heart to yours, thank you. Today, we have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Erin Haskell, and she has played a very powerful part in my own healing journey. Today, she's going to share with us her deep wisdom on how we create our own suffering and 4 basic steps to end it. Dr. Erin Haskell is a world renowned thought leader and Doctor of Divinity. She is the founder of Spiritual Psychology School, creator of the E4 method, quantum healing, and quantum manifesting, and an international best-selling author. She is committed to bridging spirituality, science, and psychology, and I am so excited to have her here today. So, hello and welcome, Erin, to the I Come First podcast. I am so excited to have you here, first and foremost, and to sit with you today and have incredible conversations around consciousness and healing. And before we dive in, I love for you to share a little bit about what is Doctor of Divinity? What is that? Can you share the details of that?
Yeah. First of all, Amy, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And anyone that's listening in, I'm sure knows that Amy is the most loving, giving spirit and just honored to be here with you today. It just makes me a little choked up because the world deserves you. There's people on this planet that are really big, huge names with huge influencers, and they're not, they are what they are. Some are amazing, some aren't. Amy deserves to have the biggest platform ever because she really is a pure, pure heart. And I just want to say that to your audience because you are the real deal.
Thank you. And you have been such a powerful inspiration in my life. You started me on my trauma healing journey as a coach and a mentor, and now as a friend and a colleague. I just feel so blessed and honored to be here with you and riding this ride called life.
Yeah, we're just on the journey together. That's right. So, what is a doctor of divinity? I think it's a really important question for anyone listening in, just feeling into who's here with Amy and what's being called into her field as her, friends or clients or people that are just really in the conversation with her. And I think that the really important thing to know of what a doctor of divinity is, it is really somebody who's understanding how to end suffering, how we are in the patterns of our life, and how we keep thinking that things are going to make us happy, new situations. If I just become more, if I just do more, if I just have more, then I'm going to be enough and I'm going to be happy. And that is the lie. And so, Doctor Divinity is really understanding how we are creating our lives, how are the divine within us, the vine that connects us in our oneness, and how we are really creating our life, how we're manifesting our life, including manifesting our suffering. So, a doctor of divinity is somebody who understands how to really help somebody heal themselves and come back in their oneness and in their suffering and come into a different perspective of life, to be of this world, but to not be of this world, to be in this world, but not to be of this world, to really free ourselves while we're here.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that. This beautiful thing that you and I have in common is the science and the spirituality. How can we start to bridge the gap between these 2 places? When we talk about quantum physics and the energy, and then we bridge that into the spirituality, which in my opinion are one and of the same. Yet they're so different in this world that we live in right now, and I feel it's the gap is being closed more and more and more, and that's the celebration of why I love what I do, and I'm sure maybe why you love what you do is because we're noticing this and we're helping people move closer and closer towards their wholeness, their aliveness, without looking for the external validation or appreciation or attention or, what we seek outside ourselves is almost always a part of the suffering, as you mentioned. So, will you share with us a little bit about your journey, maybe an obstacle that you faced and how you overcame it?
Sure. Yeah. And we'll get into the science and spirituality. It's such a great topic to know that there is a science to ending your suffering. There's a science to success. It might look different than what the culture told you, though. So, yeah. So, my journey, I can go way back into some of my suffering early on, but I think I want to talk more about the kind of journey of in my adulthood, thinking that, if I just find the right partner, then, all of my problems will go away, thinking that if I just have a partner, then I'll be happy, and then getting a partner and then being miserable with my partner, right? Or thinking that if I just, right, right, yeah. Or thinking if I just make enough money or have enough success online on my business, then it'll all work out. And then getting that and then being like, well, this is just a whole new set of issues. And that does not totally fulfill you either, meaning that the mission itself fulfills you, but all of the, external validation, like you said, and all that actually comes with a lot of problems and a lot of stuff along with a lot of development. So my personal journey is I came from a lot of trauma growing up, divorced family, lock key kind of kid growing up, tried drugs and alcohol very early, luckily didn't like that, fell into codependency instead, was, date raped in high school, bulimic from 17 to 20, thought all my problems would be solved if I just got married to somebody I didn't even know, had a full-term stillborn at the age of 22, and that set me on a big spiritual track. So, lo and behold, 30 years later after having a stillborn, as they say, "Seek and you shall find, knocking the door shall open," and so, here we are, and with a lot of truth and being humbled every single day to come into the divine within, come into that inner knowing, and bring that truth forward instead of seeking from the outside world, because the moment I do that, it's just an ongoing suffering. It never ever works. It's the truth for me.
Absolutely. And I can imagine those listening can definitely relate to a lot of what you just shared, seeking things outside ourselves, especially as women. We're programmed to be the good girl, be the people pleaser, put everything else first, above and beyond what you desire, what your dreams and goals might be, because you'll get what you want if it comes from something else, is what I was taught anyway. From money, from relationship, from fill in the blank, the car, the house, the materialistic things. And so let's put a little bit of an insight on a myth around spirituality.
Sure. I mean, I think that the myth of spirituality is that when I become spiritual enough, I'm going to be able to manifest anything that I want. You know? I think that's one of the biggest
Yeah.
myths, right? So, I think that one of the beautiful and harsh awakenings within spirituality is that I am not just Erin, Doctor Erin. I'm not this individual self. I am one with the collective. I'm one with the cosmos. And that the universal law and the entire evolution of the species is working through me. So all the good things that happen and all the bad things are not necessarily me just using the power of my mind to manifest, but rather for the evolution of the species. So I know this is a little advanced, but I want people to really get this. As we say, thy will be done. So it's a real funny thing because you're talking about self-love and putting yourself first, but who is the self?
That's a great question.
Okay. Great question.
And in my eyes, I am everything and everything is me. I am everyone and everyone is me. And so if I can see myself in others, that brings so much more compassion, especially when judgment is a part of the human experience and the fractals of our mind of judgment and all of these different parts of ourselves that come in, the inner critic and the procrastinator and the perfectionist, when all of that is unraveling and revealing. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's a matter of coming back to the truth of love and light, the truth of we are everything. I am everything and everything is me. And how can I embrace and acknowledge that whatever I am seeking is seeking me, you know? And really loving into the fact that it is possible to take our worst traumas or experiences and what have yous and turn them into something really self empowering to then be of service.
I say yes to all that. And on top of that, I think that what I used to do is I used to think, well, if I just did enough trauma work, then I'm gonna be able to be whole, and therefore, then I'm going to be able to manifest the millions, the right relationship, whatever. The issue is this: most people are actually fairly asleep, and they're actually going out of the programming of the rat race. So, meaning that many people, and I'm sure you see this as well in our industry, we're watching people get completely burned
Yeah.
out. We're watching people lose themselves and sell their souls for likes, followers, and for the status in their career or for whatever. And that really comes from the rat race that began in the 50s in what was called, there's a documentary about it called The Century of the Self. And what happened was there's a lot of brainwashing in the world. And I say this because what I invite people who are listening in is to question what you actually desire. That what our culture has told us is that we desire to make an impact, and that means that we need status and this big platform and all these things, and what's happening is that we're losing ourselves in it because it's just more material, identity, status, and all that, when we're really actually not getting what we really need, which is love, connection, expression, and actually the deep knowing of thyself with the divine nature that we are.
I love that.
So we're getting so caught up in social media, in all these things that are all distractions of what we actually really wanna do, which is have the most intimacy which we can, which the only intimacy can begin within the own soul. And so what we're doing is we're actually we think we're self-loving, and doing these things that we think we want when we actually don't even want what we've been programmed to think that we want.
This is true, and I love that you're bringing in the idea of the culture we live in right now is the social media world is just blowing up, and there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of expectation and on ourselves and each other and things like that. I feel for me is I make the most impact when I'm face to face with someone at a cafe or at the grocery store or at the park and I simply have a conversation. I was literally at the store at the grocery store the other day and in the aisle and the woman's like, "Hey, you should try these things X, Y, and Z." And I was like, "Oh, tell me about it." And we started this conversation. This woman named I said, "What is your name?" She said, "Katie." I said, "Katie, I'm Amy. So nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing." It's those
Mhm.
small things that lit me up for the rest of the day. It doesn't have to be this, "Oh my god, I had 3,000 likes on a post," or who gives like, that is not the importance here. And so it's in the daily things that we can do for ourselves and others that I feel is where we can feel fully expressed and fully alive and fully ignited. It's not in the paycheck. It's not in the other things that we're taught and programmed to believe in.
Yeah, totally. In fact, that you just validated which the Harvard study of people that live the longest have really good relationship. It doesn't mean they have, like, the deepest of friends. They have really beautiful connections just like that in the grocery store and things like that. However, most people can be fake in the grocery store aisle and be so nice to you and seem so connected, but actually be super sad inside.
Absolutely. This is truth, absolutely, and we never can really know because we've not walked in each other's shoes, you know? And so, yeah, that's something that's really important. So let's dive into this idea of not the idea, the truth of suffering and how so many of us, self included at times, are suffering in different areas of our lives because of the expectation or the pressure we put on ourselves most of the time, or society does.
So there's one primary creation of suffering. And it is basically wanting people, places in life to be different than they are, including ourselves. But the backing of that one creation is actually really placing the power outside of thyself. So all suffering comes from basically putting your power outside of yourself and resisting what is. That is the only source, and that's how we create suffering. So if we look at that and we go, "Okay, so what do we do about that?" Well, most people don't realize that they're actually they have expectations, so they have failed expectations. They're putting meaning. The universe doesn't know good or bad. It doesn't have right or wrong. There's just cause and effect. So human beings are basically we put meaning of, negative meaning that I'm not enough, right? So what happens when we suffer? What do? We wanna point the finger at every reason why we're suffering. I'm suffering because my boyfriend did that. I'm suffering because whatever it may be. I'm not feeling good in my body. I'm suffering because and we point the finger at every single thing external. That's what the human mind does, instead of taking a look at what's really going on, which is we have handed our power over to the external world.
So can we give a prime example of that so people really get into like, "Oh, that I can identify with that?"
Yeah. So an example would be, hey, let's pretend that you're a coach and you're out there and you're trying to get a client, right? So now you're like, what's wrong with me? I'm trying to get a client. something's wrong with me because I haven't gotten a client, therefore, I'm gonna assign a meaning, I'm gonna put it on whatever it may be because it's too hard, the algorithm of social media, because X, Y, and Z, and now I'm gonna actually assign that I'm not good enough, something's wrong with me, I'm not enough, and now it becomes a vicious cycle of this identity that's a false identity, a false belief, a false projection, and assigning my worth to the external world, and it becomes this big vicious cycle, and people do it over and over again. Yep, or in relationship, right? We see it over and over in relationship, like, "Oh my gosh, he cheated, he lied, he didn't say what he was gonna do, therefore now, he's the jerk, that's why I'm sad, he's a narcissist, I'm the victim," on and on and on, it goes on and on. We know 9 out of 10 people are pretty much codependent, and we love to find and we just keep thinking, "Well, if I just find the right person, then I'm not gonna be suffering," and everywhere you go, there you are, and all of a sudden you've got a different character, same theme, because it is your identity that is projecting out into that. So it is identity, creates the belief, creates the thoughts, creates the feelings, creates the emotions, creates the circumstance, and the perception of all of it, which we know is the observer effect, which actually creates the entire thing into existence in of itself. So it's just a big vicious cycle.
So how does one start to break that pattern, that cycle, and really shatter those identities that are not the truth of who we are in our essence? How does that pop?
Well, I think there's, like, 4 basic steps that are in the book around awakening, which is number 1, looking at how your consciousness is creating your reality. So how is it create what, expectations, what programming, what false beliefs, what false identities creating that experience? So whether that be in your money and career or in your relationships and love or in your health and vitality or in your purpose, it's the same cycle regardless. So taking a look and really deciding to wake up and realize that you are creating your reality. The second step is reprogramming. So you already know all that work, right? Doing the trauma work, deprogramming for what the culture's told you you're supposed to do, all that stuff. And then the third step is aligning. What is Amy's truth in these areas? What's actually authentic? Not what her parents told her, not what the culture told her, not what her limited beliefs from the trauma told her, but what's her truth. And then the fourth is affirming every day with the spiritual practice because unless we go into source and get steeped in that, pure oneness and that pure creator that we are, we just fall back into the suffering over and over again.
Let's get real. It does take practice. It's not just a one off, oh, I'm just going to do this session or this 3-month program and then life's going to be perfect. It is a daily practice. Erin, I can't even tell you the tools in my toolkit that I still use every single day because the programming is decades or if not lifetimes long. So unpacking, and doing it with practice and compassion and empathy, and then keep understanding, "Oh, I'm hitting my upper limiting belief. I'm hitting the ceiling. How do I go beyond? How do I work past that? Even in the fear, even in the scarcity, even in the upset. How do I be with it?" And then somatically start to move it and work with the body, work with the nervous system, because it's the mental gymnastics and it's also what's here, what's energetically showing up. And how do I start to breathe and live and like we were talking before about the acceptance part, acknowledging what is. Because if I keep putting a Band-Aid on stuff or I keep saying not really getting radically honest of like, well, this is a belief system that is deep for me, and this is what is, and then now how do I accept what was past, I don't know, childhood upsets and abuse and whatever was there to then go, okay, I've accepted this. Now I can start to move on and close that leaky energy and really tune into my present life and then choosing powerfully for myself. I choose me. I get to choose, like you're saying, from that source of love and connected with source spirituality.
But there is a trap, in my opinion, of what you just said in that and I don't know if I heard you correctly, but I know I identify with it, meaning that I used to go to self-love and think if I just process through this, then I'm gonna find true love. Once I, don't point the finger and take full responsibility, I'm gonna come to true love. But it's kinda like when I was 15 years old and I thought, if I just when I finally can drive and have a car, all my problems are gonna go away, right? I like that because it was hard. I had to rely on my mom who wasn't really around to drive me. I had to rely on some friends, whatever. And when I got a car, I waited tables, saved money, got a crappy car, and it had a whole new set of issues with it. It broke down, I had to have gas, there was insurance, it was like more problems. And the issue is that it's same with self-love. We think if we just do more processing, if we just do all this stuff, then I'm gonna find true love. But the truth is that all the work we do, all the trauma work, all the coaching work is just actually to prepare the soil and get the weeds out. The true self-love can only come from one place, and it's from the divine beloved source within. And so there is a saying, not that I am religious, but it says, "The rich man can never enter the heaven." And the reason why is because if you identify as the rich man, you can't identify as nothing. And the way into self-love, you can't have in order to. So then I can manifest one day. Then I can have a boyfriend one day. You have to go into self-love without one need, without one thing you want to manifest, with a pure, pure heart. And in that sacred space, there's a love that comes through that we don't even know about. And that's something that no one can teach our clients. We can't teach our clients that. There's a place in there that is the divine beloved that will actually embody the self-love at a level that no one can teach somebody else. It's the ultimate teacher with them. And that's the trap of self-love industry. That if I just do enough, self-care on Sundays, if I just do enough of my trauma work, then it's gonna happen. No, you've gotta come down to the beloved in the field, from science perspective, the field, the quantum field. From a spiritual perspective, you gotta come into the divine you've gotta come into that silent space and spend time with your ultimate relationship with the divine beloved, and merge in that union, the ultimate marriage that is within. And that is the only place that self-love happens.
I love that. I love all of that. I am curious is how does it's like a coexistence of this divine self-love and the beloved of self of within, and I live in the reality of this human experience in the 3D world. So it's navigating that. How do you empower people to navigate the both and?
I think it's a day like you said, a daily spiritual practice of getting so steeped into your spiritual practice before you start your day, that you come into your day in that field and you bring that truth into this world. I don't think there is a balance, quite frankly. I think that it is that very few people will truly find self-love, and they will actually be able to embody self-love. The majority is pretty fake, and it's this empowered state that women think is an empowered woman, the hustle mentality, and I'm self-love, and I'm entitled, and I'm empowered, and, watch me, whatever, and it's just more fake stuff.
So when you have a client or even a friend who's acknowledging maybe this pattern that she's experienced and ready to break through that, how do you encourage her to recognize what's, when we lift that veil up, what's on the other side?
The only way, as you know, I like to work with very advanced practitioners or coaches just like you who are saying, "Hey, I wanna dedicate my life to this, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to know thyself and to do the deep work." I'm not really interested in people trying to put a Band-Aid on something or, like, literally people have to completely surrender their life and realize that they've gotta get into that source every single day. They've gotta do a mastery of it. That's the only way. You can't just do it half-assed. It's not gonna work.
Yeah. And that's the truth of it. It's like any if you want to succeed with anything, it's I'm all in. It's a full dedication. It's a full commitment. And that's with anything you want to change in your life. And I think sometimes we live in that quick fix world where we can get anything at any time. You can have something on your doorstep in less than 12 hours most of the time.
Yeah, totally right.
So used to that instant gratification, it's like, what happens when now that's not the truth of this journey, particularly of opening up and finding and connecting with that?
Yeah, imagine, they say it's 10,000 hours in your field to become a master. So imagine if it took 10,000 hours in silence with your true self to master self-love. That's pretty much. Yeah, well, that would be about what it would take to actually really know self-love,
Correct. Correct. I love it. I love this.
and very few people are willing to do that, and so, hence, the suffering goes on.
Yeah, the suffering goes on. So we welcome everyone who's listening to ask yourself, are you committed? Are you committed to really experiencing freedom in your life? That fullness of what's available when you recognize that we have everything we need. We have everything we need right here. It's sometimes it can be interesting awakening, because it can exactly, and it can feel very scary.
Yeah, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, really? I thought I had reached levels," and then your daily spiritual practice goes down, and you're like, "Yeah, not so much, biatch." You were like, "We're gonna kick you in the ass right now." Mhm. Yeah, pretty much.
And I also want to really emphasize that there's never a finish line. We're never done. As long as we're living on this earth, walking in this skin suit, there's always space and place to grow and heal and evolve and step in and learn.
I think that our culture is ready for the surrender. And we see times like now with so much war and insanity, and people are more disconnected and more sad than ever. We know that factually with all the stats. And people tend to go more towards spirituality, religion. We are not religious, but they tend to go towards spirituality a lot because our values shift. And when our values shift, we realize, hey, what really matters? And when you realize, wow, this external world is just when you scroll on social media and you feel worse each time you do, you start realizing, huh, maybe there's some reason why I'm not supposed to actually be going here. And so the deep dive is going to be more and more into the spiritual work. We're in the era of real awakening, and so it's not just about knowing the truth, it's about living the truth. And the real only way to live the truth is to dive deep into spiritual practice and to live that on every day. And that is becoming a practitioner or even minister, the new type of, future of ministry, which is not old school religion. And that's what it's gonna take. It's gonna take people who are steeped in truth 24/7, and that's really gonna be the only way to have mental health in the future.
I love this. I love this. Well, I mean, you and I could chat all day long about these things. It's so beautiful. I love it. I love it. So, as we start to wrap things up, you're talking about, becoming a spiritual practitioner. Now, tell us how people can find you. What's the best way to connect with you if they're interested in something like that?
Yes, amazing. Well, you can simply start I have a podcast as well, Doctor Erin Show. It's a top 1% spirituality podcast, and, you can also grab one of my freebies. I have a free manifesting challenge where you can learn the universal law. There's only one universal law, but there's 52 distinctions around it, so there's 52 lessons around that, and then if you get intrigued more, you can come in and get certified as a practitioner or certified in E4 method, which is a trauma pass for the past and emotional mastery for the present and quantum manifesting for the future, knowing there's only right here, right now. But Amie is an incredible resource for practice, for transformation, for coaching. And, really it's about following your heart. And that's why we all collaborate and share each other's work because it's really about you listening to your intuition to be guided towards whatever's being guided. And we all have coaches, we all have mentors, and part of the currency of the beauty of abundance of this industry and transformation is we all rise up together and we have this beautiful currency called energy in form of money, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And all of those links will be in the show notes. And as we come to a close, I'd love to hear what's something that you're not good at? Let's just have a little fun
So
here.
many things. Oh my gosh, so many things. I'm not a detail person at all. I'm a disaster. But yeah, I mean, I'm a visionary, so I love, I'm a bigger picture of where things are going and things like that. I mean, I'm so bad at so many things. I don't even know where I'd count the ways. I think that's the point of being a leader is you really have to know what you're good at and really, hand off the things you're not good at. But I can't remember yesterday. I have a terrible memory because I think I'm so in the present that if I do a recording or do anything, I have to complete it with my team that day because I don't remember what I recorded yesterday.
Yeah, totally makes sense. What would you say is your daily I come first practice that you feel is important to you?
Well, I would not say that this is every day, but lately I've been waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and doing sadhana, my spiritual practice. So I had a download from Divine to if you want to be a master, and I'm not saying I've been able to completely do this, but it says do your spiritual practice from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m., your work from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and your rest and play from 3 PM to 9 PM and sleep from 9 PM to 3 AM. So that is a lot. I've been able to do it quite a few times and failed at that a few times as well. But what's so fascinating is when you actually do it, it is incredible the amount of downloads that come in through the middle of the night and how you just get high on breath work and high on the downloads, and it's just a whole different it's a completely different level of life.
I have been experiencing astro traveling around 3 or 4 in the morning, and that is wild. It is wild because at first I was like, "What is that?" My whole body was online, but I was in this it was so beautiful. So that's something I've been playing with. So, what is something you're super excited about that's happening in your life in the next 3 months?
That's a good question. I love to create a daily spiritual practice, like, that's my favorite thing, so all the research I'm doing right now around because I feel like we all the women in particular in the West, the entrepreneurs and things, are really we're here to bring enlightenment on a whole level. Instead of the guru that's this one master in the one monastery, right? We're here to bring it in all fractals. And so for me, I'm really intrigued with the research of how to actually have the enlightenment and hack all the different ancient practices. So, like a Joe Dispenza does the same thing. He really, really brings in hacking for how do people really turn on the pineal gland and things like that. So I've been doing a lot of research, practicing, trying different things, seeing what works, and hacking the system. So that's really what I'm most excited about.
That is very exciting. I can't wait for that. So
Yeah.
let me know what you've got going on. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, this like pure gold of insights. And I just absolutely love and adore you. And I'm so grateful that we have been on this journey. And yeah, thank you for sharing. We'll keep everyone tuned in every
Yes, share this out, you guys. You should support the people that you love on this planet. You know, there's a lot of insanity. Turn off the things on your social media that are making you feel bad.
yeah.
Support, share out the people that you love, and the more we do that, the more we'll all support each other and the more we'll all rise in our spiritual awakening.
I love it. All right, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Until next time, remember you get to put yourself first and really dive into that nurturing of love and commitment to your journey and your growth. We'll see you next time.